How can I not hit the record button when this is happening? If you don't get the chance to watch this stuff live, then you are missing out on some of the most fun stuff in all of investing and trading. And if this stresses you out because you're down X amount of dollars, then this is not the right market for you, because this should be exciting to you, this should be an opportunity to you, and even if you're losing money, it should be, what I find really interesting about moments like these is it really tests just how emotional you are or aren't, because there's no way to replicate this feeling in test trading. You only get this feeling when it actually happens in front of you, just like this. And in the last, how long has it been? Roughly an hour, we've seen Bitcoin come down from 15,000 all the way down to 12,750 or so. There's a few missing candles here that you don't see, and now we're seeing it pop back upward. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to buy into this yet. I was hoping it would go just a little bit lower than where it did. Actually, quite a bit lower, but the night's not over yet. The night's still young, so I'm not going to count out the possibility of being able to buy Bitcoin quite yet. It'll be very interesting to see how well Bitcoin holds up against the other cryptocurrencies, because at the moment, we're seeing Ether tank against Bitcoin. We are seeing Litecoin tank against Bitcoin, and I'm sure if the trading pair was on here between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, that trading pair would be crashing as well, given the fact that Bitcoin Cash is all the way down at $2,400. No surprise to me there. It is very interesting watching this happen at the moment, and I'm going to be watching this dominance figure very closely, because at the moment it's really stayed relatively flat. We went down to roughly 43%, maybe a little bit below 43%, and now we're back up at 43.6%. Should be interesting to see whether or not that number stays flat, if it goes down. Initially it was going down, but again, when Bitcoin tanks like this, it really does tend to, at some point in the future, altcoins tend to catch up. What's going to be interesting here is if this ends up being a dead cat bounce, or if this is going to actually come back down here and we're going to see a longer term decline. Because you can see this has not been a good day for Bitcoin. It's not been a good day, period, for all of the cryptocurrencies at the moment. You can see that since I recorded the video just earlier today, $70 billion have been knocked off of the total market cap of the market, actually closer to $80 billion. So this has been a fairly substantial day. Volume is starting to pick up. People are starting to panic. There's blood in the streets. This is when you try to buy. I really want to hammer in that type of psychological reaction. You should get excited, not disappointed, not frustrated, not angry, not sad. You shouldn't feel any of those emotions when this type of thing happens. This should be an opportunity for you. And even if you don't have cash on the sidelines to deploy into Bitcoin, then this tests your ability to hold, and it also tests your ability, again, as I was saying earlier, to measure your ability to handle emotions associated with trading and investing. Because if this is influencing you a lot, then probably the better option for you is to stop checking the price of Bitcoin so often, because it will lead to you probably selling at inopportune times when you probably should have been selling sometime before this colossal drop down in price. I mean, nobody can guess when Bitcoin is going to decline, but when you have a run up like Bitcoin has had recently, which I can't seem to be able to show you because of the fact that GDAX simply does not want to load these charts, but we are starting to see a very quick recovery, which is interesting because Bitcoin always proves to be more resilient than anybody ever expects. This bounced back a little bit sooner than I would have liked. Of course, you guys know if you watched my previous video, I'm looking for Bitcoin to start purchasing it at between 11 and 12,000. Who knows, maybe it never comes back down again and we see it come all the way back up to 20,000. Maybe this is the most we ever get out of a dip. Now that is yet another emotional situation that you have to be prepared for. In the event that Bitcoin has a dip down like this, and it comes back up just before your limit order, because there's going to be scenarios where that happens, and that's another situation that you have to be prepared for from an emotional standpoint that can be difficult to deal with for many people. And I've had multiple times where in cryptocurrencies, I've had a limit order, 1 or 2% where we see a dip come down to, and then it reverses and goes straight back up. I don't know if that's going to happen here. I still had an order that was fairly low compared to where the market went down to. You don't see the candle where it actually happened, but it went down to roughly, I don't remember the exact price. I think it went all the way down to 12,800 before it started bouncing back up. This is a trader's or a day trader's dream market. This is not the type of market that I particularly like to trade in. I just like to take advantage of dips like this when they happen. But we'll see whether or not I get to take advantage of this particular dip. I still stand by what I said in my previous video. It's a good time to get into Bitcoin. You can see that that dominance figure actually updated again. We're up to 44% dominance now. When there's volatile moments like this in the market, Bitcoin tends to be, again, it's not going to do well. In other words, I still think that the market's overvalued, and this is a correction that I wasn't really expecting to see a few hours after I made that video, but I was expecting to see a correction like this. We're probably going to see Bitcoin continue to fall in the event that we don't see substantial whale activity prop it back up. These are fairly thin order books at the moment. It probably doesn't take much to manipulate the price down. That's why you see huge candles like this on the 1 minutes, because you have situations where the order books are so thin that you can push the price back up and down depending on which direction you want to push it if you're a whale. What I wouldn't do to have a few $1,000,000 just to play with this price. I mean, I guess I wouldn't, because there's the moral, ethical implications of manipulating the markets, but it would be a very interesting trial to do. Maybe someday I'll do that. I'll borrow money from a couple of people that I know, try to get a couple of $1,000,000 onto here, and just see whether or not I can manipulate prices, record the whole thing, and put it on YouTube, and show just how easy it can be. That would be an interesting video, wouldn't it be? It would also put a huge target on my head, so I'm probably never going to do it, but it is an interesting thought nonetheless. Anyway, taking away from the rambling here, in all seriousness in terms of what I would do in this particular market, this is the opportunity to buy. And if you're somebody that can't stand missing out for Bitcoin bouncing back up right before your limit order gets hit, then I'll leave that up to you. Personally, I've never chased price, so if it doesn't come down to my limit order, I don't buy it. I don't move my limit orders up just because we see a little bit of recovery like this. Because again, it could just be a dead cat bounce. There's been so many times in the past, and I learned this more with stocks than I did with cryptocurrencies, where it will come down just to where your limit order is, bounce back up, and you FOMO, you buy into it, and it ends up coming back down to your limit order anyway, and then sometimes even lower, and then you feel sad because you ended up taking more risk and didn't stick to your guns. And I think that the number one rule when it comes to trading, when it comes to the short term and the midterm, it always is about sticking to your guts, sticking to what you think is true, and not changing because the market, or Mr. Market I should say, disagrees with you for whatever reason. But anyway, I just wanted to record this because this was a very interesting moment here. It looked like Bitcoin for a moment was going to break down below that $12,000 area, which I was hoping it would. Doesn't look like it's going to happen yet. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of the night. I will provide an update video if anything substantial happens, but keep your money on the buy trigger in case Bitcoin starts to go down a little bit more. We're probably going to see some opportunities in altcoins as well if they start to depreciate against Bitcoin at a faster rate than Bitcoin goes down, of course. And you guys know that I basically change my opinion depending on what's out of favor. And I think that's, in my opinion, the way that you maximize your returns and minimize risk is by picking things that are out of favor, that are good projects, have good teams, or have good community support. Obviously, in the case of Bitcoin, you could argue that maybe the project itself is not as valuable as some of these other cryptocurrencies just because of all the flaws that are associated with it. But there's so many other things that give Bitcoin value associated with that first mover advantage that I know a lot of you want to dismiss at the moment because there's those $30 transaction fees that some of you are experiencing. But trust me when I say those advantages are going to be very, very difficult to ever go away. So anyway, the point of all of this, get your pocketbook ready, be ready to purchase some Bitcoin, be ready to purchase some altcoins, and I will produce another update video in the event that we see a little bit more activity than we're seeing right now. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to interact with me and talk to me about the content of this video, I tend to be very active on my Steemit. I respond to pretty much all relevant comments on any of the posts that I put on there. It's basically just my YouTube video and a description that I wrote for it. And so if we go to the latest video that you can see I just uploaded 3 hours ago. Again, didn't really expect prices to move this quickly, but you can see I write a short little description that's from the YouTube description, but it's a little easier to read here. But more importantly, I do respond to most comments, although I haven't responded to any of these yet, so maybe that's not the best example. But if we go back to, say, my last one here, you can see that I do, in fact, respond to the majority of comments, and then any repeat comments or short comments like this, obviously, I'll probably skip over. But anyway, if you want to interact with me, make sure you check out my Steemit. Otherwise, leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.